Welcome all to
Oh, we can't
Data
hear
for
you there,
Good.
Kevin.
We have a small but mighty group tonight.
That was a great intro. That music was awesome.
Oh yeah, you can't go wrong with the Fat Boy Slim, eh?
That was awesome.
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Let's see, who do we got here? Oh, Mr. Moeller, welcome. Michael. Oh, Ripa, hello. Michael, have you been to a Data for Good before?
Yes.
Right on.
Working on the cost of living project, actually.
Yeah, that's right. That's embarrassing on my end. Right on.
Okay.
Cool. Well, let's there's a small mighty group tonight, but we're going to go through a bit of our year in review in Data for Good. And are you guys all game to do that?
Yep, sounds good.
Yeah, right on. Let me share my screen here. Cool. So what we're going to talk about today is well, all the things that happened last year. When we talk about last year, Data for Good's season is really the September to June. So, 2021, 2022, and then this year, this year will be, from now until June of next year. So we're going to go through meetups, projects, and community, and kind of what Data for Good in Regina here has been up to. We, over the course of the past or the 10 months that we were up and running, we have meetups pretty much every single month, and we had some pretty spectacular meetups, although I could be a little bit biased there, but we had, Scott Wells and we had Double Scots and Shopify, Mike Burjack from Shopify come in and talk about careers in data. We had Insightrix come in and talk about their COVID data. Ryan Tessier, when he was at SAS Polytech, came and taught a course or taught some Azure did a teaching on Azure. We had NumPy come in, Government of Canada talked about the data that came out last year. Common Approach talked about impact measurements. And so, one of the values of Data for Good is to bring people together, educate, share case studies, and just share data knowledge. And so, we hope to bring in more speakers that are going to add a lot more value to the data community in Saskatchewan this year. We also did a bunch of projects and are continue to work on projects, and I won't get into too much of these here I don't want to take away anybody's thunder, but we had quite of what I would consider an impressive team working on the cost of living project, which spans Saskatchewan. And then, of course, we had continued work with Regina Food Bank and 211 Saskatchewan, United Way, and Sophia House. And so we, our first purpose of Data for Good 5 years ago in Regina was really heavily project focused, and we're still focused on doing good work in the community for charities and nonprofits, and but we're evolving in the way that we can serve the community. A few timelines in addition to doing projects. Data for Good here in Regina got a communications lead last year. So any emails you get, including one you probably got yesterday comes from Heidi, and she jumped on board. She's in Saskatoon and is doing all of our comms. She's doing our emails, stats, and she is an excellent communications person. And one of the traits of an excellent communications person is chasing down the people you need to get communications from. And she is definitely seasoned in that. We also did the Insightrix podcast, which was tons of fun. And so check that out on their Twitter feed. They just reposted it. We had some brilliant folks in Saskatoon say, hey, we want to do some stuff up here and run some projects. And so Saskatoon, as most of you know here, a couple of young men there are leading a Saskatoon project, the Cost of Living project. We got our fancy new website up, and so thanks to Josh on our leadership team here in Regina. His agency donated all the time and effort to get a new website up for Data for Good, and not just Data for Good Regina, but all the chapters across Canada. And then we had our first in-person meetup since COVID. And so that actually went off really well. We had in Citrix and NumPy. This also was before summer. And Stan and Chuck gave an update on the cost of living project, which was phenomenal. And so, things were moving. So, and then the chapter as it breaks down right now is led by it's led by the community, to be honest. But some of the stewards of the chapter are myself, Scott Wells, Marina, and Josh. Try to drive the direction of try to make all the pieces work together and get projects off the ground and get people organized and be out in the community. Cody Rogers, if you ever have presented here, you've ran into Cody. He basically organizes these meetups and talks to the people and gets that system rolling. And then of course I talked about Heidi. She's our communications lead. So we've got a pretty mighty, dedicated, awesome team running Data for Good here in Regina. And thanks to participation of volunteers, because we're all volunteers in Saskatoon and all over the province, we've really been able to kind of almost touch all four corners of Saskatchewan, which has been pretty cool. So to talk a little bit more about what we have done, Scott, why don't you talk a little bit about our work with the City of Regina?
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. And as Kevin kind of mentioned, when we talk about community, that's all of the different projects that we are working on. And so he touched on very briefly on Sophia House, 211 were a couple of the other big ones. But in the past year, actually, we had worked with the Regina Food Bank on some of their needs. And so some of the folks in Data for Good and some on the call today were involved in that work. And really what that led to was our work was taken from the CEO, so John Bailey of Regina Food Bank. He took that to the mayor of Regina, Mayor Masters, and said, we've got a problem with location. We want to, have a conversation about this. And that really spurred the discussion within the city, as well as a number of organizations around, how do we manage and support some of these nonprofits and charities, the food bank being one. And at the same time, obviously, COVID was going on. And there's a lot of problems within not just Regina, but kind of all over Saskatchewan. And so a larger conversation kind of spurred up. And this is really where the summits kind of stood up. And so, Kevin, if you want to jump to the next slide there, what these summits really were, if anyone's seen the Regina Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, it's actually on the City of Regina's website, but they had work that was done a few years ago to kind of review what was going on in the City of Regina related to a number of different dimensions. There were 6 of them that kind of bubbled to the top: housing, intimate partner violence, food security, substance use disorder, racism, discrimination, and safety. There's another one that's in there related to just the overall service strategy within City of Regina, but they started having these summits, and you'll see in the picture below, actually, Mayor Masters was out there helping us facilitate. We worked alongside with Mayor Masters and her team to facilitate these sessions, bringing the community together, organizations, people with lived experience to truly understand what the problems related to some of these dimensions in the City of Regina were, and really just working on how do we get to actionable outcomes. Obviously, one of the big problems that we've got across all of this is lack of data, which again was one of the reasons why Data for Good was brought in to kind of help and support. And so we've been working with them off and on since last January to really work through these problems and see where we can kind of come out. What's happened since then is they've developed some community action tables for each one of these items, and there are groups currently working on each one of these domains. And there's likely going to be an ask of Data for Good once they get some of the other work done to say, we need help getting data in all of these different domains. How can you help us? How can you build some of the reporting across these? So big win for Data for Good, but I think bigger than that, the community in Regina is really on the verge of being able to leverage data a lot more effectively and be able to change the outcomes for a lot of individuals that are either suffering or in challenging circumstances.
Scott, do you just want to touch on a little bit what some of the common themes were across all the different sectors when it came to data? Like, what are some of the things we heard consistently?
Yeah, there's a couple of different pieces. One from the organizations, some of them were capturing data, but didn't know what to do with it. And you'll actually see an example of that coming up here pretty quick on a new project that we have. And so some folks didn't even know how to start capturing data. They don't have systems. Some of them do have systems. As we look across housing, there's something called HIFIS, which is actually a national application for them to use, but it isn't really rolled out to everyone. And so they can't get consistent data across the board. And that really makes it difficult for any decision maker to make a decision about funding or otherwise. And then really beyond that, even with funding, some of these folks don't really know where to go. There's challenges, even just coordinating access for folks that are looking for say housing as an example. They don't know where there are beds available on any night, on any day. They have to call around to every organization and see. And so really just being able to consolidate some of that information or make it visible would drastically help a lot of folks within the city.
Right on.
Okay, I'm going to touch a little bit on future projects. And so one of the items that we ran into this year, and really just as through our evolution, is the sense that some projects really end up lasting quite a long time for a number of reasons. And so we're looking at how do we make that, a little bit shorter, a little bit tighter. If anyone's familiar with kind of the agile methodology in kind of project management, how do we break it down into smaller pieces, get folks in and out as quickly and be able to work on some of these projects? And so what the goal is really to focus on more defined deliverables. And like I said, over a shorter period of time, what we're shooting for is actually 60 to 90-day sprints with kind of 3 different periods throughout the year. So in October to December, January to March, and April to June. And so what that'll actually look like is essentially the Data for Good leadership and some of the project leads will work with these organizations ahead of time, make sure we've got all of the data, all of the deliverables, all of the scope ready to go before anyone is actually deployed on a project with those defined kind of timelines and goals, really putting out a version of the product and then iterating from there. It may last multiple sprints, but the goal is really to get the expectation out there to all of the organizations we're working with as well, to have that information up front. We typically do see in a lot of cases that some of the information from organizations drags behind by month or months. And so we want to really eliminate that and make sure teams are set up for success right at the very beginning. So one of the examples of an upcoming project is the Phoenix Residential Society. So this is one group that came out of the summits that we worked on. And so the Phoenix Residential Society, they are a charitable community-based healthcare organization that provides psychosocial and rehabilitation services for people in Regina with psychiatric disorders. So they're a little bit different than just kind of a lot of the other housing initiatives. They're looking for folks, or they're supporting folks with a lot higher level of needs. And so this organization, really what they're looking for, one is to help them put together all of their information. They've been capturing a lot of really interesting information, not just kind of numbers of people, but they actually do something, an assessment at the very beginning. It's called the SPDAT. It's an industry kind of standard assessment that actually shows the level of need of an individual as they're coming in. And they actually show that on the outcome. So whether someone either leaves or over time, they're actually able to show that as well. And so really with those, they're looking to actually show the value of the services that they provide. And so this will be one of the projects that will be kicking off here in the September-October timeframe.
Cool, man. Any questions so far? Just feel free to raise your hand using that little hand raiser in Zoom, or jump in and say hello. So another piece of focus for us for our chapter is the recruitment of volunteers. And really what we're looking for at the get-go, one of our biggest needs is project leads. And those are really people who can manage the project and get the project out the door, and it can manage the timelines, getting the deliverables, managing the people, and just making sure that we can keep projects within those sprints and help them, not go on and actually deliver what we say we can deliver to the client. And so this job description is actually on the Data for Good website, regina.dataforgood.ca. So this person, and Scott, jump in here at any time. is really going to be, liaison with the nonprofits. They'll get support from the leadership team. Essentially, what happens is projects come in, and Scott and I and Josh and Marina will kind of like scope it out first, and then kind of identify what the outcomes could be, and then once the project is just defined, it has a scope, then we engage a project lead, and then the lead is really responsible for executing the project and working with the team. So they don't necessarily have to be like a strong data scientist, as an example, but should have some experience. This is kind of a project management role. Anyway, there's details there. I won't go through all of them. If you want to check it out, you can check it out on the Data for Good website. But this is really somebody to take ownership of projects and take them through to completion, being in alignment with our guidelines and our policies and all those types of things. The kind of things you'd bring to the table for this role is an understanding of the main elements of an analytics project, like the life cycle of an analytics project. Data extraction, cleaning, analysis, and all that stuff would be quite helpful. Project management experience, strong organizational skills, and good communicator, and familiar with tech, like communication tools on tech like Slack and Google Workspaces and things like that. Scott, anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so. And it's not necessarily just one project lead that we're looking
Yes.
for. It's one per project that comes across our table. And so we'd be looking for multiple lots in terms of kind of anyone that looking for that kind of experience.
Yeah. And there's always there's a support of a whole community there for this person. If you're interested in it, well, I guess some of the main benefits of it is experience, the giving back piece. There's a lot of folks that have expressed interest in trying to build their portfolio and trying to build their experience in the data world. So this is an excellent way to do that. It is tons of fun. I know you'd expect a guy like me to say that, but I've been doing this for 5 years, and Scott's been doing it for 5 years too. And we're pretty fun guys, don't you think? And so anyway, there's a ton of really cool people there. It's an opportunity to manage data teams. You actually get access, like I said, or like Scott was saying, you get access to like really, great people, the mayor in our city and other, leaders in the nonprofit sector. So it's tons of fun. Time commitments are generally 1 to 3 hours per week, and then of course the regular stuff that happens when you manage people, right? Checking in and meetings and providing updates to the leadership team, and coming to meetups and presenting on your progress and all that kind of stuff. So kind of 1 to 3 hours a week on these project leads, which are is a requirement. And then this would fall into our new project sprint model. So if you're into that and you want to check it out, just shoot us an email at dataforgood, regina@dataforgood.ca. Explain your interest in the coordinator role, summary your background, and a resume would be cool. And as Scott said, we're looking for multiple project leads. So if this is one project or working on in several sprints, we can talk about what that looks like for you or anybody All right. Cost of living. Chuck, Stan, you guys ready to rock?
We are.
Thanks,
Kevin.
I think I can share my screen here.
Yeah. So I think we all know who Chuck and Stan are, but let me give them a little bit of an intro first. They are the fine gentlemen in Saskatoon that are leading our cost of living project. And that's actually all I'm going to intro you on. I'll let your work do the rest of the talking for.
I need screen sharing permission.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Stan, you can go ahead and kick us off while I get the screen set up.
Sure, absolutely. And I'll follow up, and support, wholeheartedly support one of Kevin's points that he made in terms of some of the great people that you get a chance to meet. This project started in March officially, and we have a few of the members of our team here, including Scott, Michael, and Ripa, who's on the line. I think, as the project leads of this project, having them here and being willing to hang out with us on top of all of our team meetings is a testament to how cool this group is. And I've mentioned many times, my only lament is that we aren't able to meet in person and have a beer afterwards to talk about the work. So all of this to say, we're having a lot of fun, and we've been just feel very lucky to work with the team members that we have. With regards to the project itself, once Chuck has the slides up, we'll advance through the slides. Essentially, the big picture goal of this project is really to look at updating and improving on the cost of living for communities in Saskatchewan. Our hope is that through, and I should mention, these calculations exist. Anyone who's been on Statistics Canada's website know that, aspects of cost of living, poverty, or, local economies, there are reports, tables that can be found on Statistics Canada. But however, what we keep finding is that the cost of living calculation lags behind the reality of real-time trends. If memory serves, 2018 was the last cost of living type report on Stats Canada, and the second challenge that StatsCan typically that we typically see in StatsCan is that it doesn't have the greatest nuanced geographical data. The broad strokes and some regional strokes geographically, great source, but if we're focusing on the province itself, can we do better in terms of updating data as it relates to communities, rural and urban, and as well as can we automate it so that the data gets updated quicker, more frequently, to inform better decision making for local communities. Chuck, over to you.
Yeah, so one of the main measures that we have thinking about cost of living at the local level in Canada that's created by Statistics Canada is the market basket measure. This measures the cost of a specific basket of goods and services that allows a family to meet its basic needs and achieve a modest standard of living. Considers things like categories like food, shelter, transportation, and clothing. But we only get it for about 5 different types of communities, Saskatoon, Regina, and then a few categories of urban and rural, of different sizes. And critically, we only get it about 2 years to 3 years late. So it's really helpful for looking at poverty trends historically, but it's not great for making current decisions or planning for the future. So our goal with this project was to see if we could do better, and that is come up with cost of living estimates at the local level that are more timely and get down to a higher level of resolution. And also consider more cost categories, something a bit more transparent for people. So that was kind of the thrust of this project. We've been working with a really talented group of folks over the last 6 months, almost, maybe 4 or 5 months, combining a whole variety of skills, really, everything from literature review through to web scraping, data management, thinking about small area estimation and nowcasting, and we're even starting to actually visualize some of our cost estimates. We started by looking at rental costs and scraping Facebook Marketplace for rental data. We're still working on that, but we're also now starting to look into transportation data, scraping other websites, a whole variety of things. And to talk us through a little bit of some of the work that's been going on by the team, I'm going to throw to Scott Muller to talk about some of the work that he's really been leading our web scraping efforts.
Hey, Chuck, thanks. So yeah, I've been working on some of the web scraping we've been doing along with another team member, Ripa. So yeah, for a quick overview, those who don't know, web scraping is using software to extract data from websites in an automated way. So if the data you're interested in is available on a website, you can write a script to go and fetch that for you and kind of store it in a usable way. So kind of the most popular or typical way you could do some web scraping would be using Python. They have a number of good libraries such as Request, Selenium, and Beautiful Soup. You'd kind of use a different combination of those packages depending on how the data is stored and kind of what the website is. So for instance, on the cost of living project,
We've scraped Facebook Marketplace, Auto Trader, and Zillow. For instance, for Facebook Marketplace, you kind of have to log into the website. It's behind authentication. You do something like Selenium, which is a little more full-fledged. You can log in and click buttons and that kind of thing. Something more lightweight like Requests and Beautiful Soup work well for Auto Trader and Zillow. Now, there are some challenges with web scraping. I think anytime you're going after a new data source, the first thing you should do is consider alternatives. Is that data already available? Can you use a REST API? Can you partner with a government organization or another company that could perhaps give us that data? If that all fails, web scraping is a viable option. But it is definitely, you're writing custom code, so it's more effort, more work to maintain, and you're kind of at the mercy of these companies who have the data out there. If they change the format of how their data is structured, or if they change a lot of them will try to prevent bots from scraping them. So if they change kind of their parameters for what they allow or what they don't allow, you might end up doing a lot of rework. For instance, with Facebook, they rotate their HTML every few months, so that you kind of have to go in and maintain your code. And it's a bit of a game of cat and mouse. And it can be difficult to fully automate the system. If you deploy it to a server, it comes with its own challenges and that kind of thing. So it has worked well for us in the cases here that we've needed it. For instance, we've been scraping Facebook for about 4.5 or 5 months now, with a little bit of maintenance here and there, but it can be a viable option if you need it to be.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, it's been amazing watching Scott work and showing up to our routine team meetings and just seeing the reams of data accumulate. One scrape back in May doesn't make a big, doesn't seem like very much, but Scott's been doing this every couple of weeks now, or weekly even, for 4 or 5 months. And so it's really starting to accumulate. So one of the next steps on the team or in the workflow, is to actually take all that information and try to turn it into estimates of local costs. I've been working a little bit on that. We're going to talk in a second about opportunities for folks to help out. We definitely need more energy in that department. But once we start actually creating those calculations, then Michael's been working on visualizing those in Power BI, and the results are very impressive. And so I'll let Michael go ahead now. And do you want to share your screen, Michael? Actually,
yeah, I'll do that. I think I might need permission to.
Let me do that for you. 1 second.
Yeah. But yeah, I would just scroll like the CSV files of data that Ripa and Scott have scraped with thousands and thousands of observations. But we'll see if the sort of distilled version of that when Michael has a chance.
Yeah. Everybody see that now?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, this is the map of Saskatchewan. We broke it into the census divisions, so you can see each one here, and we got the median rent over time on the side here, and then there's the different divisions. It's an interactive chart, so you can select like any one of the divisions, and it'll show the cost over time per week right now. And this is for our median rent so far. And then we've also scraped some data for house cost as well. This is the same map, or just different data, the housing data. And then we have one for our auto cost as well. And then we've also created a different style map just with using the towns instead of the census divisions. So you can zoom right in and just like click on any town and you can view the median cost per week. And that's kind of the prototype that we have so far.
Thanks, Michael.
I'll quickly add to, thank you so much, Michael. So as through Scott's data web scraping efforts, REPA has been part of the web scraping team, feeding that into the calculations, and then subsequently that Chuck's been leading, and then Michael has been doing the data visualization. As you can probably already see within the prototype, the bigger idea will then be to have all of these layers all in one, and all of the different cost categories all in one as well too, so that you can parse it by hopefully at the community level, or at least at the regional level, what is the cost of rental, housing, cost of purchasing a house or purchasing vehicles or gas, have all those categories be parsed out or merged together to have a total cost of living calculation. Yeah, excellent job, Michael.
One of the things that's really exciting to see is, just speaking to where we kind of started in our goals of doing better than the market basket measure, we're clearly seeing already, sorry guys, I lost my windows here. We're already seeing like that resolution in that Power BI presentation, down to the census division level, that's up to, I think, over a dozen different categories or regions of the country, regions of the province compared to what we had before, 5 or 6. And then we get down to that town level. Some of those numbers are maybe not based on a lot of observations yet, but dozens of towns throughout the province of Saskatchewan. And these numbers are up to date to a week or 2 weeks, compared to 2 years. So for the categories of costs that we've already looked at, we've made quite a lot of progress. I'm going to throw back to Stan now to kind of make our pitch for what's coming next.
Sure. I will just quickly share. Oh, you got already there, Chuck. Excellent.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah,
so essentially, we're looking to have more awesome Data for Good volunteers join us. The project is big, and even though we've made really good headway on 2 of the cost categories from the market basket measure, there are others where we're still in need of investigating in terms of and collecting data such as clothing, such as food, hygiene products, just to name a few. We could use more help. And so if you are interested or have some experience with web scraping, we would love to have 1 or 2 more web scrapers to help out Scott and REPA, so that we can really ramp up and expedite the process now that we have a bit of a roadmap in terms of how we can get from looking at needing to find data for something like food to getting to the point where it's now on a interactive map. Now we want to start sprinting. So 1 to 2 web scrapers would be awesome. We would love to have 1 or 2 more data analysts on the team. These would be individuals who would be taking all of the reams of data that is provided by Scott and REPA's team, and subsequently calculating, the cost of X for X community. So this entails some, depending on what statistical analysis package you like the most, we can talk a bit more about what we use or what we prefer. But that being said, having someone with that experience or at least that interest can really help get us, again, up to a running speed. And then lastly, it would be great to have 1 volunteer spearhead some of the data collection for the secondary data. This is the one that doesn't have to do with web scraping, but essentially the data already exists. We just have to find it. It might be a matter of compiling data points from different websites or different sources, but essentially it would require having a keen eye on reviewing and looking at where to find certain data sources, compiling the data, and then subsequently feeding that into the analysis as well. Next slide, please. So that's where we're at. There's a lot of great energy, a lot of great progress that has been made. Our goal will be to come up with a product, hopefully within not too long. And I think with some more help, we can certainly achieve that. Please look out for more updates from us in the coming weeks and months. Thanks for your time.
I realized.
very. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say I realized we didn't put it in our presentation, but I don't know if Scott Wells wanted to talk a bit about where that product, what the future for that product is. It could be.
Yeah, I'll maybe add a little bit. So this is something that a number of organizations throughout Saskatchewan are interested in. Some other provinces have some sort of data hub or, area where folks can go to get access to some of this information provincially, not necessarily this exact same information, but other useful data. And so we've been in conversation with a number of different organizations that are willing to help and support this and grow this as we go along. This is really meant to be a proof of concept that we can continue to grow within the province. And so, it's really exciting in the sense that this work will hopefully live on past us and really continue to grow and flourish. And folks, organizations within the province will get value out of it. And then additional data will be asked for to be made available and made publicly available. So there's lots of opportunity for this as we go forward.
Right on. Excellent work. Michael, Scott, Ripa, Chuck and Stan, of course, and everyone else on the team. That's incredible. And way to scrape Facebook and not get sniped. So cool. So let's I'll circle around with Scott Wells, and let's get some material up on the Data for Good website about what you're looking for recruits. And if you want to put anything additional together, we can blast that out and to our network and try to get some more volunteers for you. Yeah, Scott Moeller is a cheat code. Yeah, a real life cheat code. Left, right, up, down, AB. That's the old contraband. Was that contraband to get the guns on Nintendo? Anyway,
Contra live.
Hey, yeah. Cool. Excellent presentation and excellent work. So the year ahead for Data for Good is really going to be about three things, right? Our meetups, we're going to continue to focus on education meetups or training, bringing in more people to, teach skills like NumPy or, Azure specialists, focus on careers. So that means we're going to bring people in to talk about their journey in data, in the data world from, senior people to junior people. And then the case studies, last year we saw, Connexus came in and talked about their journey, and a few other places did. So projects, as Scott Wells mentioned, are intake based projects. They're really still going to be community driven, and we're really going to focus on tightening up timelines. And I think that is, start and ends, or we think start and ends on projects are, keep people motivated and know where they're at. And so really, get better at executing our projects for the community. And then recruitment, find more leaders within the community. And a leader doesn't necessarily have to be a project lead, but they can be anybody from, the person coming in and just volunteering at a very junior level up to a senior person. And so, one of the things that Data for Good really values from the beginning, and this is as an organization and also in our particular chapter and in Saskatchewan, is really, empowering teams and people to do the actual work, and all along the way building capacity of people around. So I can't imagine all the smarts that everybody has acquired from working on the cost of living project by working with other smart people. And so these are our focuses for 2023. And if you want to get involved, join, just go to regina.dataforgood.ca. Project forms are on there. Scott Wells and I and Josh and Marina's contact information is all on there. The project lead role descriptions on there, and a whole bunch of interesting things are on there. So check it out. And otherwise, we have also done something spectacular tonight, which is ran the shortest Data for Good meetup in history. So does anybody have any other questions? Anybody want to shoot the breeze about anything about what we talked about today? All right.
Sounds like Stan and I should put together a script for volunteer recruitment for the cost of living. So
Yeah.
we'll work on that. I like an hour. I think we should strive for 60 to 90 minutes for these meetings. This is a good length.
Yep.
Kevin, I'll ask a quick question. Are the meetups planned to be in person in the coming year or still digital?
We did in June a hybrid in person and online, and I think that worked really well. And part of the reason it worked really well was because we use SaskTel's facilities and they have the tech to support an online and in person. So there is a ton of value in meeting in real life. But the June meetup also showed that most people still wanted to meet online. Now, whether that's habit or whether that's, oh my God, now I got to be somewhere at 7 o'clock at night and I'm already at home, like we're accustomed to the Zoom life. I'm not really sure what it is, but we're going to try to do as many, we'll just continue to do hybrids as much as possible.
Kevin, what about alternating, like having kind of like online webinar type events that we've been doing that I think are really effective, but then maybe every other month having an in-person event in Regina, which is more of a social event than a learning event. We could maybe try to do something similar in Saskatoon eventually as well.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. And having a focus on social and kind of prepping that ahead of time so people can prepare to be out in the hot city of downtown Regina on a Wednesday at 7 o'clock or Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Yeah, that's an excellent idea. Our next meetup is going to do that.
I just had a follow-up question, Kevin. Like back in the day, like pre-COVID, because you guys have been going for a few years before COVID.
Yeah.
Did you do like in-person sort of social things, and were those successful or effective?
Yeah, all our meetups were in person, and they were what we lost by not doing them in person is a relationship building between the people at the meetups, and then in some cases, a relationship building with the charities that we would bring in. And so the story that a charity could tell and the excitement around doing the work for the charity is very kind of tangible as when people are in person. And so there's just a little bit of a different dynamic in person, but we did everything in person and always worked pretty well. The online also works very well. So I think the answer might be like picking and choosing. And hanging out with you guys in Saskatoon, that's tons of fun too. So we don't want to, not have that. Cool. The next meetup is going to be career focused. We have a few cool people coming to talk. Somebody from WestJet's coming and a couple of other guest speakers. So to talk about their journey in data. So should be fun. Until then, thanks everybody for coming out. Scott, thanks. Scott Wells, thanks for updating us on all data for good stuff. And then cost of living team, thanks for your updates. And then those not involved in either of those, thanks for coming to our meetup, and we'll see you at the end of October.
Awesome. See you guys.
Take care, folks.
Good night, everyone.
Doodles.
Thanks so much. Great to see you all.
Yes.
Thanks.
Old Chucky's frozen there. At least he's frozen for me.
You want to stop the recording?
Oh yeah.